The way I eat today may not necessarily be the way I eat tomorrow. And I like it like that. So today I will be discussing how I eat, or my two preferred methods of eating post-op VSG. Excuse me, I'm not feeling that great. I'm freezing and I think I'm getting a cold. My throat is killing me, so just pardon me and bear with me. So even before VSG, I would always go back and forth with my styles of eating. I would always flip-flop between the way I eat it, the way I was eating, or how and what I ate. This is when I was focused, which more often than not I wasn't. But when I was trying to follow I don't want to say a diet, but when I was trying to follow a diet or a particular eating plan, I would always switch it up. And in all honesty, in my earlier years, that worked very well for me. And it's worked very well for me post-op. However, during that 3-year window when everything just seemed to come crashing down for me, or should I say go up and up and up for me, that 3-year period where I was really gaining weight uncontrollably, even switching back and forth did not seem to work. So I reintroduced that post-op, and it's working again, just like it did when I was younger. So the two styles I follow are calorie counting and bariatric keto. So I will start by talking about calorie counting because that's the most basic. Calorie counting is just exactly what it sounds like in a nutshell. You establish a caloric limit for yourself, or you, your doctor, and your dietitian, or whoever you choose to have help you establish a caloric limit, and you eat within that caloric limit. Your main focus is how many calories you consume. So, as I stated in another video, I reassess my eating patterns every 3 months, approximately every 3 months, to see where I am. And now that I'm almost 10 months out, I just recently reassessed at month 9. So now my calorie allotment is up to 1,000 calories. But during months 6, 7th, and 8th, my max calorie allotment was 800 calories. So every time I increase my calories, I do so in 200 calorie increments. And that works for me, because when I was only eating 600 calories, I started to notice that 3 months of that was enough, and then I was getting hungrier. So then I would increase it to 800 calories, and that worked for me for about 3 months. And then I noticed, like right around the 8 3/4 month mark, I was getting hungrier and I was eating more. I was going over my 800 calorie limit almost every day, back to back to back. So I knew I was approaching time to increase my calories again, and do so in increments of 1,000. I'm sorry, in increments of 200, which would bring me to 1,000. Right now that's working perfectly for me. Most days I don't even hit that, but it feels good to know that on the occasions that I do go over, my previous 800 calorie allotment, I'm safe, I'm covered, I'm not doing anything that I feel or I would feel uncomfortable with. And so I use MyFitnessPal as my preferred app of calorie counting. I use several bariatric apps, and many of these apps have a lot of the same features, but I only pay attention to certain features within certain apps. So MyFitnessPal is the app that I use to track my calories. Excuse me. With that, I like calorie counting because it allows me the opportunity to eat things that I wouldn't eat if I were following a bariatric keto plan. The bariatric keto plan is much more restrictive, and so when I want to be a little bit more lax, for example, say I know there's a special event coming up, or if I know I'm gonna be out and about a lot and I might have to eat out more often as opposed to cooking at home, then I prefer to follow the calorie counting style, because this way I don't feel, and I'm not as restrictive as I would be otherwise. So typically when I'm calorie counting, I still try to pay attention to the carbohydrate choice, but so usually I will choose complex carbs like sweet potatoes or brown rice or quinoa, something along those lines. However, I don't always eat complex carbs. I do occasionally eat simple carbs like white rice, yellow rice, which is still white rice. I don't really eat much bread per se. Bread, and it's not because I'm afraid of bread. I know a lot of people are afraid of bread, especially after having VSG, and that's understandable. But me personally, I'm not afraid of it. I just can't handle much of it. Like, I can hardly eat a whole piece of bread. It fills me up super fast, and so I like that. And that's another reason why I do allow myself to eat the occasional simple carb, because they fill me up very fast. Or should I say, like, bread fills me up very fast. As far as processed items or cakes or cookies or stuff like that, I eat it, but the amount in which I eat it is laughable. And what I mean is, if I had a whole cookie, like say a regular cookie from Subway. I haven't had one, I'm just using it for example. But say I had a cookie from Subway, or I'll give you an even better example. I recently had a cookie from Chick-fil-A, and it was their chocolate chunk cookie. And that one cookie is 300 calories, 330 calories, I believe, the entire cookie. I couldn't even eat a half of the cookie. So what that means is, you take the whole cookie, you divide it in half. So I have half of the cookie. I can't eat that. I can only eat a half of a half. And so it's like a quarter of whatever the snack or sweet or dessert is. And I know that's my limit, because anything more than that, I get sick. So my limit with regular sugar is like a fourth of whatever the single piece is. I can't handle much processed sugar, and again, I'm absolutely okay with that. You know, I don't like that much sugar as it is. I prefer to use things like stevia, or even though, you know, there's a lot of controversy surrounding artificial sweeteners, I use them. I personally use them, and I'm very much aware of, you know, much of the controversy associated with them. I have a bachelor's degree in dietetics and nutrition, so I'm very well versed in nutrition. So these are just personal choices. So yes, I do use a lot of sugar-free products or artificially sweetened products, but my preferred sweetener is stevia, or some form of stevia extract or something like that. So those are the things that I traditionally have when I am calorie counting. It's pretty much whatever I want within my caloric limit, and as long as I don't exceed that limit, I pretty much have what I want. I also, like I said, I'm aware of how much of certain processed items that I can have, so I don't go over those thresholds because I know how my body will respond. And so if you choose to follow or deviate from your traditional way of eating, whatever that may be, post-op, just make sure you know your thresholds and your limits. And it's gonna take, some practice to figure those out, because yes, I have the way in which I know how much of junk food or sweet or processed item I can have is because I've eaten more than I should, and it made me sick. And this has happened more than one occasion. So it'll take practice, and you'll start to notice, okay, this is where I have to cut it off. So I know my thresholds. And so as long as I stick to my thresholds that prevent me from getting sick, and I do not exceed my caloric allotment, I'm good. So that's how I eat when I'm calorie counting. What exactly is bariatric keto? Bariatric keto is pretty much a lot like, to give you an idea of an eating style, it's very akin to the South Beach diet, which is traditionally low carb, lower carb, but you're choosing the low fat versions of items, as opposed to with the traditional keto diet, you are really choosing just strictly full fat versions of like oils and heavy creams. And this is for those who allow themselves to consume dairy during keto, because some people avoid dairy while eating keto. But those who do allow themselves dairy traditionally consume the higher fat creams, the full fat versions of cream, the full fat versions of sour cream, the full fat versions of cheddar and cheese and XYZ. Whereas bariatric keto, again, very similar to a South Beach style eating, it's recommended that you go for the lower fat cheese options and the lower fat versions of sour cream and things along those lines. Additionally, a huge difference between bariatric keto and traditional keto is the focus of the diet. With either version, you're paying more attention to your macros as opposed to your calories. Some people don't even pay attention to calories at all when they're following a keto style diet. However, with the way in which I eat it, bariatric keto, I guess you can say I still use calorie counting interchangeably with it, because I always, whenever I log my food, and with this one I still use MyFitnessPal to log my food regardless of which style I'm on, whether it's calorie counting or bariatric keto. But what I pay more attention to when I am following a bariatric keto diet are my macros, as opposed to the number of calories. It's just still within my limit though. Rarely do I go over. I don't think I've ever went over. I don't think. But anywho, so with calorie counting, using the MyFitnessPal app, you're paying more attention to your calories. But in the MyFitnessPal app, when you're following a bariatric keto, I configure my macros. Anyone who typically uses MyFitnessPal for keto, be it traditional or bariatric, configures their macros. And so another difference between bariatric keto and traditional keto is the focus. I think I started and then veered off, but the focus. And what I mean by that is, even though you're concerned with your carb limit, carbs are still higher on bariatric keto as opposed to on a traditional keto diet. Typically, when I was following a traditional keto diet, my macros were configured, and I'll try to insert a screenshot over there somewhere to show, I believe it was 70 to 75% fat and 20% protein and 5% carbohydrates. I believe that's how it went. 75 fat, 20 protein, and 5 for carbohydrates. So majority of my nutrients and calories were covering. The focus was on fat, traditional keto. Bariatric keto, the more focus is placed on the protein. So I reconfigured my macros to show 40% protein, 30% fat, and 20% carbohydrates. And that's bariatric keto. And I'll try to insert a screenshot of that over there also. So again, comparing bariatric keto, if I could compare it to anything, because a lot of people would DM me, what is bariatric keto? What is bariatric keto? And I would try my best to explain it to them or give them something that they may be familiar with. And I would say the South Beach style diet or South Beach eating plan. And people are like, oh, okay, I know what you mean now. It's very similar to that, because you were consuming much more protein on a South Beach diet than you would if you were eating a traditional keto diet. So I eat like this occasionally. Like I said, I flip-flop between both of them. I switch it up. I love to switch it up. To me, it keeps my body guessing. It keeps my metabolism guessing. I don't get stagnant, and I also don't deprive myself. Usually, I think many of us struggle when it comes to diets because we have this belief that diets are about deprivation. And I know personally, pre-op, I used to do that, and I think there's a lot of reason why I failed, because I would, go for so long depriving myself of things that I really, really wanted. And then when I had them, I overindulged, and then that would soon result in me falling completely off of track. And before you know it, the scale has went up, the diet has went out the window, and I'm just eating whatever and not really giving a damn. And that's totally honest. But now I think switching it up and being cognizant of how I'm switching it up, it makes me so much more aware of what I'm eating. I also feel like I just feel like normal now, if that makes any sense. I feel a sense of normalcy in my eating now. And so that is basically bariatric keto and calorie counting. And these are my preferred styles of eating. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down below in the comments, or hit me up over on Instagram or Facebook, or you can send me an email, whatever you prefer. I'll be more than happy to respond as soon as I can. What sort of eating pattern do you follow post-op, or are planning to follow post-op? How do you eat? Let me know in the comments also. And if you haven't done so already, please don't forget to subscribe and turn the notifications on so you can keep up with me, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye.